Aloha! Welcome back to the Anxiety Coaches Podcast. I'm your host and coach, Gina Ryan, and I'm so happy to be with you again today as we consider the many ways to bring your mind and body back to its natural peace and calm. In today's episode, I want to talk about where your journey starts for clearing your anxiety. The first place that we start is in believing in your ability to overcome anxiety. A real basic but common issue that blocks the healing and the clearing of anxiety is believing that you can't get past anxiety, but that you need to learn how to just live with it. That simply is not true. I was going through some client notes that I have over all these years, and when I was seeing very common threads, one of the basic ones was just not believing that you can do this. Now, of course, you always hear me talking about acceptance here, and I'm all about acceptance. But I'm also all about changing the things you can. And you know that takes courage. That takes us right back to the old serenity prayer, right? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, one of the things that happens is we spend so much time trying to change things that are not within our circle of influence. This is another thing that comes up often in coaching and in the group and actually just talking with friends, right? You can see this even when a friend brings a problem to you. Maybe they can't quite see it yet, but you might notice, geez, they're spending a lot of time on something they have no influence over. Or they are spending a lot of time in something that they cannot change. And we all do it because it's just very easy to slide into worrying about things that we have no control over. We talk about them, we ruminate on them, we spend a lot of time and energy there. So it's a really good practice when you catch yourself doing that. Ask yourself if you can bring that energy into the inner circle, which is the place that you have control, where you can make changes. This is great to put in your journal. Make the little circles, make the little circle you and the things you can control, and then make an outer circle of the things you cannot control. And when you find yourself ruminating on something and getting very frustrated, you might want to see where that might fall in those two circles. I bet it falls, if you are extremely frustrated, it might fall on the outer circle. Now, I think I have done episodes on things you can control and things you cannot control, and I'll go back and check on that. And if I haven't, I will do an entire episode on that. But today, I want you to realize that you have a lot in that inner circle of things that you can control that actually can help you to get past, beyond, clear, whatever word you want to use, your anxiety. Now, does that mean you're never going to feel anxious in your life? You're never going to feel fearful or worried? No, that's not how we use the word anxiety here. You know, we're talking about living day in and day out with that perpetual feeling of there's a problem. I'm on edge. My amygdala is ready to jump at whatever it can, whatever it can figure out as a problem. And it's going to make me think about it, make me try to figure it out. And again, it often falls in that outer circle of things that I cannot control. So that's a big waste of energy. And when you start to notice those things, your life begins to change. And so, like I said, I'm all about changing the things you can, the things I can, and yes, it does take courage. And with so many variables involved in how we feel in our minds and how we feel in our bodies, I know that there are many adjustments and changes or considerations that you can still explore. Many of you may have not even imagined that you could have things in your life that you can try to affect your stress, your anxiety, and your panicked feelings and behaviors. And there's a lot of them. You may have already given up and just said, oh, this is just how it is. Let me see if I can figure out how to just cope, how to just get through the days. Well, I want you to change that belief. I want you to begin to explore. You probably can't change it overnight, but begin to explore the idea that what you believe is influencing your thoughts and your behaviors and your well-being. We can do so much more when we believe we can do it. You know, when people come to me for coaching or they come to the podcast, they come to explore what can be done. And they often come very afraid. They come filled with fear. And I get that. I was afraid too. They don't really look afraid. I don't know if I looked afraid. I probably did. I don't hide my feelings very well. I probably looked like I was a deer in the headlights, but I was getting through all my days. I still could do everything. I was high functioning for sure, but I was a mess inside. But many of the people I work with, they don't look afraid on the outside. They actually look really put together. And they have very influential jobs and they're important people in the world. You would never guess from the outside what was going on, the fear that they are harboring deep inside. Now, other thoughts that come up when people come in and they begin to open up about their anxiety, whether they're talking to me as a coach or sending me an email from listening to the show, things that come up are of being weak. People often use the word failure or that they have no courage or that they are lacking control over themselves and their own lives. Now, I can feel that, like that energy. I have been there, and I'm not saying I never go there. We all have dips, problems. We all have days or weeks that are off. But what we are talking about here is not going down the wormhole anymore. You can actually have a bad week. You can be down. You can be filled with fears about XYZ, something that popped into your life, but you don't have to go to that place where you believe this is how you're going to live the rest of your life, that you believe that you are a failure, that you believe that nothing can be done. No, through education here, from understanding your own mind and body, you can begin to understand that this is just a blip on the radar. This too shall pass. I don't need to add more fuel to this fire. And it's that fuel that we add that sends us down the wormhole. The fear of the fear, the talking bad about ourselves, putting ourselves down, using black and white thinking. There's entire shows on those things. But the more we can believe in ourselves and that we are just having a moment, so to speak, and this too shall pass, the more quickly that we are able to get back on keel again. Have you ever had any of these thoughts about yourself? Something like, it's too hard to get past living with anxiety. Or, I'm exhausted, I can't do any more. I'll just learn to live with it. Now that's going to the place where you're just going to learn how to cope with it. And yes, we do have to accept what's happening with our low energy and our inability to grasp the moment where we maybe acted fearful or that we were thinking fearful thoughts. Yes, we can accept what's happening in the here and now and learn how to cope in those moments of distress. But what we do is that we learn how to realize our strengths and our abilities so that we don't add fuel to that fire. We can actually pause. We can feel the moments of distress. We can pause it because we realize we have strengths and abilities, and we learn that we can control certain things in our lives, such as how we are thinking, how we are responding versus reacting, how we can set ourselves up in the day to begin from a calm and peaceful place and handle what comes forward. This helps us to change the things that we can and restore our natural peace and calm through a healthy, flexible nervous system and a self-compassionate, non-judgmental state of mind. Beating ourselves up and judging ourselves and the world around us only keeps our fight or flight reaction queued up and ready to pounce on even slight distress or discomfort. I want you to remember that you got this. I've watched so many people who have been at the end of their rope turn their life around, not to cope and survive, but to thrive. Not to mention, if I could do it alone back in the dark ages before the internet, you can do it too. And so I want to share with you right now, I'm going to pull it up here on the computer, a little note that I got in my Facebook Messenger the other day. And this is from A. She gave me permission to share it. And she said, "Hi, Gina. I just wanted to thank you for everything you and the group did for me years ago. I have now been at my job for 2 years and living on my own for the same time. And my recovery started with your podcast. I'm really grateful to you for all your wisdom." Thank you, A, for sending that in and for giving me permission to share it. I did share it with the group, and now I'm sharing it with the big world right here on the podcast. This particular person was with us, and the difficulties that she shared in this messenger were that her job and her living situation were big triggers for her. And I love getting a message 2 years out of how wonderful they are doing. People send me wedding pictures. They send me pictures of the babies. They tell me of all their great things that are happening in their life. And they remember because they learned some things here on the show or in the group, wherever, that really sparked them to be able to believe that they could make the changes necessary to live a happy and calm life. And it's interesting that when we are highly stressed or anxious, we are seeking some control, right? We feel out of control and think we are at the mercy of these horrible thoughts and feelings that we are immersed in. And at some point, we are sure we have tried everything. So it must be that we just didn't have any control over these anxious feelings because we've tried everything. Well, I get you. Having a lot of anxiety and panic is totally exhausting. You may be so tired that you begin to wonder if you are depressed or anxious, or maybe both. Perhaps you've been to get help for how you are feeling, and you were told you can learn to cope with anxiety, but you will have to learn to live with it as this is a part of who you are. Okay, I'm taking a big breath here because, yes, we all come into this life wired differently. We may be even a highly sensitive person, or we could be an introvert. Now, I want to take a little side note here and tell you that extroverts get anxiety just as much as introverts, but it seems that introverts just got the rap, like they do for many things. But if you score high on the Big 5 personality test, it's kind of an interesting test if you ever want to look into it, to be high in neuroticism, then you might be prone to anxious feelings more than others. But nothing says that you can't get over your anxieties. It's just learning how to use what you are good at and where your strengths are and move the needle in that way. Will we ever live with only joy and peace? Probably not. But we can live where we believe that we can have joy and peace and cope with stress and discomfort when it arises, versus reacting with poor self-talk of being weak and that life will be like this forever. No, let yourself believe, because every small step or practice strengthens your beliefs. It's like a snowball effect. And borrow from the other parts of your life where you can remember your strengths and pull those up. They will help you. Just you being here today is a message to yourself that freedom and peace are possible, and that with time, patience, and practice, you are already on the path to your life of more peace and calm. I hope today's show was helpful for you and that you will remember that this is not a one and done kind of thing, getting past anxiety and learning how to be stronger and more resilient and believing in ourselves. It's one step at a time. So each time you take a little step, give yourself credit for it. Give yourself a pat on the back. We're very easy to tear ourselves down when we forget to do something. So let's remember to be kind to ourselves and build ourselves up. It's like building a muscle so that you can keep doing it and you will have the strength, that you won't be exhausted. I look forward to being with you again in a little while. So please, please be sure to send us your questions if you have anything on your mind. anxietycoachespodcast@gmail.com. And now for today's quote. We are who we believe we are. And that's from C.S. Lewis. I'll be back in a few more days with another podcast. Until then, be well and aloha.